Welcome to Mindful Management, a podcast by Chefalo Consulting, where we share the knowledge, stories, and resources you need to create a trauma-informed culture that supports wellness, growth, and resilience. I'm your host, Shenandoah Chefalo. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you are joining us and tuning in to yet another episode of Mindful Management. But today is especially important to me because although we talk about feelings a lot on our podcast, today we get to talk about one of the feelings that I think scares leaders the most. So without further ado, on today's episode, we are delighted to welcome Kelly Hall, who is a visionary and founder of L.A.R.G.E, where she leverages her extensive experience to shift organizations from merely surviving to thriving. With over 30 years of leading diverse teams across the globe, Kelly specializes in transforming corporate climates into flourishing, innovative environments. Her expertise in strategic planning, building award-winning company cultures, makes her a sought-after consultant and coach. She's also the author of the book L.A.R.G.E Transforming the Workplace with Purpose and Authenticity, where she makes a powerful case for why love, yes, you heard it right, that feeling that we might be afraid to talk about, especially at work, is the next big disruptor in business success. Beyond her business acumen, Kelly is deeply committed to her work in philanthropy, actively engaging in community strengthening initiatives both locally and internationally. Kelly, I am so thrilled to have you on to talk to us about love today.
I'm very glad to be here.
So you have this rich background in revitalizing organizations, advocating for self-directed company environments. Could you share a moment or experience that ignited you into wanting to do workplace culture?
Absolutely. I'm one of the lucky members of our generation that had someone take a chance on me because of a female diversity initiative inside of my corporation. And so when I watch all the misunderstanding these days about DEI and about quotas and everything else, I'm like, it actually took some of those steps to put us in leadership. And believe me, the first of the female executives that were put in those roles on all male executive teams did not have a great time. You know, we were talked over, nobody heard our voices. We really had to be quite forceful in our leadership in order to be heard and understood and for people to take chances on us. And I think it was really important that we had those things happen. I was one of the first 4 female leaders in my company to get P&L responsibility and general management positions. And all of us have gone on to lead other organizations and be CEOs of companies. And that wouldn't have happened without some stimulus to change the environment and shift the rules. So when I got the chance, I brought a lot of those masculine leadership behaviors to my work until I didn't. It took some time for me to feel the permission and the space to be the authentic female leader that I am, with more community and more collaboration and more concern for well-being and for how people show up as much as what we do. And as that got stronger and stronger in my leadership, and we just had low turnover and high employee engagement and satisfaction rates, I was like, we're on to something here.
I love it. I love that history, but we're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about empathy, which has a place in that larger conversation. That something that I talk about with my organizations all the time, which is it's okay to talk about feelings. As leaders, we hear often folks say, I need a more emotionally available employees. I need right? And then I say, that's great. So let's talk about feelings. And the pushback is we can't talk about feelings at work. We can't talk about feelings. And I always say, listen, you can't have emotionally in tune staff, intelligent staff. Emotions is in that word. Emotions means feelings, right? So we got to talk about feelings. And so we can sometimes get leaders there, but the one that I think that they get real concerned with is this idea of love in the workplace. How do we have love in the workplace and still do our thing, still get the tasks done that have to get done here? You have literally written the book about it, Kelly. So tell us about implementing a love-driven leadership. What does that even look like first?
Yeah, and this is an excellent question because love is an extremely loaded word, and it means so many different things to us, let alone around the world. It has very different connotations from culture to culture. And I think that love gets a lot of credit as this big, powerful emotion, but I've reframed it in my book as our essential life force. And I really feel that it's a little hard to explain how we walk around for 100 years with a heartbeat and a breath until you really start believing that we're 100% human and 100% divine. And if you think about this thing we all have in common with nature and our nature is this unexplainable force. And I really believe it is love. And love is the thing that connects us. It connects us to nature. It connects us to our nature. And when you really start letting love flow and stop believing that it ends and that it's finite, but you realize the best of life is represented in our relationships with each other, with our spirit, with our work, with our world, with our home, with our office. And those places and spaces should be treasured by letting love flow. And love doesn't mean perfection, and love doesn't mean positivity, and love doesn't mean kindness. Love means connection to something bigger than ourselves, and it flows through ourselves. And so I really feel like loving someone is giving them good feedback. Loving someone is bringing care to an agenda. Loving someone is preparing for meetings. Loving someone is seeing them and for the individuals they are. And one of the most powerful forms of love is forgiveness and fixing things and saying you're sorry. And love is the force behind psychologically safe spaces because it's not about being perfect and it's not about being inauthentic. It's not about not being forceful. It's about being honest and cleaning up the messes the days that your honesty steps on someone else's toes or tramples their feelings. We don't want people to not bring their whole self to work. We want to clean up the messes really quickly. And that changes the job of leaders from being commanders and drivers to being coaches and facilitators and full of care and compassion and concern.
It's about boundaries, but you kind of said it there. It's not about perfection. This is the part that I thought was so good. It's just about when it goes wrong, can we stop and pause and fix it and then move forward? And that piece to me is so powerful because I work is work, home is home. And when you're at work, you better be as perfect as possible. And trying to live to that standard is exhausting and impossible because it's like there's always something that can be tweaked. There's always something that can be worked on more. There's always a draft that could be reviewed one more time. Like there's always something that can be done. And what I noticed is that when things went wrong in work, in the old way of thinking, the idea was like tough luck, push forward. We're not gonna talk about it, we're not gonna repair it, it's just suck it up and move on. And I think what I hear you saying, and it's something that I talk about quite often is, can you just slow down? Not stop working, but can you slow down to pause, to build what you said, which was connection and relationship. And so I wonder in your kind of love-driven approach, that's what I'm gonna call it because I like this idea. What's the one thing that leaders could focus on to instill that little piece for us? Like, because I think when leaders, and especially traditional leaders first hear like, "Hey, let's have more love at work," it can feel a little like rainbows and unicorns and everything is great. And so how do you start love driven when maybe you're in a toxic environment?
Yeah, my specialty is kind of walking into toxic environments because I really can't stand dis-ease. I wanted all the dis-ease out of my body and life, and now I want it out of every culture and every company too. If we're spending more of our adult healthy years at work than any other single environment, it should be good. We should be leveraging people's gifts and helping people understand you're trading your time for money. You have one life, and the time you spend at work doesn't need to be hell. And so the best thing that I have experienced in leadership is that, like, for leaders, I think the golden rule is to make sure things happen with people and not to them. And so that's my first promise that I make to any team that I work with is to the very best of my ability, things will happen with you and not to you. And that has led to highly inclusive cultures. It's led to group decision making. It's teaching consent instead of consensus because we're not going to wait till everybody agrees and they're on board. But when someone is responsible for something and they're the decision maker, they owe it to the team to understand where people stand on every issue and to try to overcome the dissent. But then you got to go. You can't wait for everything to be perfect. You got to act. You got to take chances. You got to learn. And so you don't have to sacrifice speed to have inclusion.
Yeah, there's just gonna be times where everybody's not gonna agree. I mean, we have to just accept that, right? Like, any new initiative and this happens all the time, and I watch this get teams stuck all the time, where a leader says, "Ah, I've got this person who just won't get on board with what we're trying to do," right? And it's usually a singular person, maybe 2, but and they're wasting all their time and energy trying to get them on board, and I often say, like, "You gotta go because the people who are on board will lose interest and will wanna go back to the old way of doing the work." So, at some point, you gotta let those people be, figure it out for themselves in their time, support that, and the team that's ready to go, if you don't motivate them and keep them motivated to go to the new way, they'll lose interest.
Absolutely. Well, and it is the hardest thing and why diversity and inclusion are always stated together. Like, it's really not that hard to put a diverse team together. If you put some effort and energy in the types of candidate slates that you recruit from, you will end up with more diverse teams. But the reason diverse teams don't always outperform homogenous teams is because they do behave differently. They do have different styles. They do have different characters. They do have different backgrounds. They do have different traditions. And until it's safe to bring all of that to work, you're not gonna get the best out of people. But the minute that you start realizing all stereotypes are kind of only generation or directional guidance, but the truth is every single one of us is a pretty special individual, and the more that we can pause and look for both the things we have in common and the things we don't agree to, the richer and richer and richer a culture gets, and the higher and higher and higher the performance follows.
So, Kelly, you're bringing up what some may say is a political topic these days. I would probably typically disagree with that, but we're living in a maybe unusual global political and economic time. And so, what strategies can organizations use to kind of navigate this time? I mean, you're talking about diversity and inclusion, which I think many of us a year or 2 ago even would have been like, yeah, that's exactly, we know it makes teams more productive. We know it impacts bottom lines. We know all of these things. But we're living in a time where even using the language of diversity and inclusion can be seen as wrong or improper. And so if you're a leader trying to navigate all of that, what can you do to maintain a culture rooted in love with everything that's happening at the political level?
I think there's 3 things that I would mention, and not in any particular order, but there's a lot of power in building the skill to trade places. And that basically means, like, if you're gonna start messing with policies or procedures or benefits or other things to navigate these crazy times, you gotta be able to trade places with the people who are going to be affected to say, if I were in your shoes, how would I receive this change? What would it mean to me? And it even is better if you go so far as to have roundtables or to have forums to ask. I think this is going to affect you this way when I make this change. What am I missing? What's really going to happen to you? Because if you were to trade places, I don't think we'd have so many layoffs and plant closures in communities being affected by so many horrible things, because we would never want that to happen to us if we traded places with that migrant, with that that person. And I think that this active effort to trade places and say, "Would I want that to happen to me?" could change a lot of things for the better. The second thing is really realizing emotions are just information, and we shouldn't be trying to maintain super positivity all the time because it's not honest or real. I just saw this post this morning from one of my friends. They posted something on LinkedIn that said, "Your body hears everything your mind says. Stay positive." And I do believe that. So I wrote back, "I believe in the power of mindset and intentional behavior, but I also caution against avoiding negative feelings. All of our emotions are here to serve us, and there's a time and a place for anger, rage, disappointment, hurt, and sadness. If a piano were to represent all of our emotions, you can only play a great song, including the sharps and the flats. Our bodies and minds are amazing, and we get to master feeling all of our feels and using them for the insights and information they hold." And I think that is a powerful thing about leadership is when if people are mad or they're angry or they're upset, there's so much richness to the things that trigger us, like this no tears at work. What? If a woman is crying at work, something's wrong. It's just information.
Yeah, I think it's such an important piece, and I think it actually ties to the first one, and I wanna get to the third one that you have, but I think those 2 are so tied, and I'm just thinking about this on a client who, has recently been working on the new call back to office remote work policy. So, there's been, like, a bigger policy, a statewide policy that they're now they have some ability to enact that in their place in the bigger system differently. Everyone doesn't have to enact it in the same exact way. And their choice, which I thought was really brilliant, was I don't really care what the policy is. I just want my people to be happy. So I gave my people, I got a work group together, said, here's the policy. What do you want to do?
From team to team and department to department, some of them need to be together. Some of them are working in labs. Some of them are working in plants. Some of them are working across the country with different customers who have a national footprint. It's sort of silly to think that everybody has to work the exact same way like they're robots or inhuman, because really, I would like to say to each set of adults, these are adults, that if we could treat them like adults and say, "You guys organize yourself. We highly recommend spending some quality time together. You decide how that happens. You hold each other accountable for your outcomes, not your hours."
And so it's been interesting because the emotion piece has come in about because listen, you're not gonna come up with a policy that makes everyone in the organization happy. That's impossible to do. The perfect policy doesn't exist. And I just love your idea, the phrase "emotions are information." This idea that just because someone's having an emotion doesn't mean you need to fix the emotion, right? Like, how to just let people have the feeling. It's one of the things we try to teach in community meeting. You don't have to fix it. You just get to let people tell you, "I'm mad, I'm upset, I feel good, I don't feel great." I like whatever that emotion happens to be for them. And you're right, it's not trying I love the piano analogy. It's that I can share that I'm upset, and we're not afraid of it.
Yeah. I would go so far, and it's part of my book, that it's so important for safety that we know what's going on with people's whole lives, because if you are running a factory and you've got people bopping around on fork trucks and one of those people found out yesterday their parent has cancer or their child is depressed, or
They're going through a
if people
divorce,
aren't
whatever.
safe
Yeah,
if people aren't safe to tell you they're distracted or to tell you that they need a different assignment for that day, you're putting the other people in the business at risk, because that girl or guy should not be on a fork truck that day.
that's
But
right.
if you don't have this safe culture and these spaces where people get to be their whole selves, you're putting everyone at risk.
Yeah. Alright, Kelly, what's your 3rd one? I don't wanna
The third one is about building skills to master repairing and restoring trust.
Ugh.
I had a wonderful coach named Andy Centric from Covey for 3 years, and it's one of the highlights of my career that I had that support to learn, not just interpersonally, but with customers or suppliers or whoever, not to be perfect about trust, but to break this paradigm that if trust falls, it's like a house burning down and it takes 18 months to rebuild it, but it's never quite the same. That's actually not true. If you get really good at identifying trust falls and you tackle them and address them, your relationships are often better than if the problem never happened. And so the more and more that leaders realize it's not about perfection, it's about fixing fast. It's about solving for the pain. It's about figuring out why the quality issue happened or why things failed and owning it and rebuilding and restoring trust. The better that we can get at maintaining and restoring trust versus just creating a perfect house of cards, the stronger the relationships and the higher the trust gets.
I love this one because I feel like you only know if you have trust really when something goes wrong. Like, that's
Exactly, when
it
somebody's
has to be
tested.
tested, right? So, like, Kelly, we can be like, "Yeah, of course we trust each other." But the real trust doesn't come. The real safety doesn't come until one of us something goes wrong for one of us, and then what happens, right? It's
Yeah.
easy when you're in the honeymoon. It's easy. That's the easy part of the relationship when, "Hey, we're getting to know each other, and we're having all of this fun, and isn't this great?" The real test is when it goes sideways, and I'm just thinking about in my own local community, there was a post recently, from a parent that I know, and his son was buying his first car, and he had saved about $8,000 to buy this new car, right? He's getting a used car. I mean, we all know what cars cost right now in the marketplace, and he went to a place that I think most people in our community would send our kids to go look for a first new car, and he bought this car, and he said, "Listen, we all know that the car was used and as is. But my kid didn't even drive it 30 miles off the lot before the transmission went. He hadn't even made it home from the lot, and he called up the car dealership. Now, we all know what as is, but they had a choice in that moment to either say, "It's as is," or "Bring it in, let us help you out, let us do something that shows kind of who we are." Now, they chose to stick to the as is contract. And I thought, Kelly, to me, this is such a thing that happens just even with leaders and employees every day. Something goes wrong, somebody brings you the thing that goes wrong, and you have a choice as a leader to either say, it's your problem, figure it out, or to say, how can we fix this and repair this together? What does that look like for both of us? You can, as a company, then choose that with the customer and frankly lose a client for his life. I doubt that person will ever buy a car from you, whether you're right or wrong, and the community reputation of that. But I think as leaders, I see that happen, especially in toxic organizations that we're talking about when we're coming in and trying to do this culture shift is how are you going to repair it with your folks? Because it's going to go wrong.
Yeah, people make mistakes, and, when we were adopting the self-directed culture at Niaga, um, we knew where the trust issues were. People were kind of open about where the pain was in the culture and in the organization, and it doesn't happen overnight, but we were really leaning into the empowerment dynamic and into, um creating a drama-free partnership between the people that we worked with. So we created a set of guidelines for ourselves about where the drama was and how we were gonna overcome it and how we were gonna shift it. And the one of the things was about fast failure because we were in a disruptive innovation venture. We were trying to figure out how to make really big things like mattresses and carpet and furniture completely recyclable with chemistry and engineering. So we're trying to do something the world has never done before. So it wasn't just an idea, but it had lots of proof. And so this was ripe for failure. And we started teaching people how to fail fast and say, ta-da, like I made a mistake. But so that the group can get involved in the issue and bring a lot of eyes and a lot of ideas to it so that you turn ta-da moments into aha moments in record time. And also people get to see things from different angles and they get to have a pickle and we get to learn fast and we get to fix fast and fail fast. And fostering that culture of failure being part of innovation, part of disruption is overcoming all of the current status quo and all the momentum that today's world has. And so we really had to make it safe to take chances and to fail as groups, not as individuals, because it's only human nature if things start getting really scary. that some people are going to keep fighting, some people are going to hide, some people are going to run, and some people are going to wait. It's going to happen every time that people are going to do one of those four things. And if you have 100 people, they're going to do all of those things. And so the challenge of leadership is how to keep the voices open, how to keep the pain flowing, how to keep the trust and overcoming being repetitive so it just feels natural to take a chance and to not die.
Yeah. And what's the Kelly, as I just listened to you, we talk even about these three, how would I receive this change, emotions as information, and building the skills to repair. What's because what's underlying all of that for me is power. So when
Power
we're,
and love. The
yeah, yeah,
power of
yeah.
love.
Yeah,
Because
well,
power
yeah,
in traditional hierarchies says the people at the top know the
there it is.
most. The people at the
So,
top have the best intuition, they have the
yeah.
best experience, they have the best guidance, and they make the best calls. Not true. I can tell you every decision I inherently would have made when I took the time to let other people say, "What would you do? What's intuitive to you?" I even got a tattoo that says, "Tell me more," because if people push my buttons because I think I know, and I have the now the grace to go, "Well, I was headed this direction, but now you're saying it might be over there." And the more that I listen to all the possibilities, the better all of our potentials become.
So you added something there that was part of my question around power, which was hierarchy. Because when we talk about love, to me, this is really talking about moving from a hierarchical structural into a flat hierarchy, right? Which means we still do it. We all have different roles and responsibilities around here, but we have this realization we're all humans.
We're all here with 24 hours a day. The time is the common denominator. And if you have a bunch of people who are organized like a triangle, and the people at the top think that their energy is the most precious and the people underneath are to serve them, the total energy in that triangle is quite constricted and quite limited. But the minute that you open it up to a circle, even if people have different experience and different years and different tenures, when everyone starts being treasured for the 24-hour-a-day adult that they are, that is giving the same amount of time and energy to work, and you actually use your energy differently to activate the energy of everyone else and help them spread their wings, the power in the organization that treats everyone like a walking, talking, talented adult is factors more powerful than the ones where the top people think that they know the best.
So I agree with you. Quote you in a social media post soon. Time is the common denominator because I think it's the thing I hear so much when I say to organizations, you got to slow down. They're like, "What's the one thing we can do?" I'm like, "Slow down." What I mean when I say slow down is not stop working. What I mean is time is everyone has the same amount of hours. So like you got to slow down so the person at the bottom can understand what you're thinking of at the top.
Yeah. One of my favorite, pieces of advice that someone gave me and that I have definitely leveraged over and over again is, um, to get rid of the word delegation, and I call it, like, the D word. Like, in Niaga, when we were hiring people, especially people who had on their resume all this people leadership experience because we didn't have leaders, we only had teammates, and of course, some people are in leadership at any point in time, but you didn't have direct reports, we didn't have subordination, everyone was equal, and it was funny when we were hiring people who valued needing to show this responsibility for others. We said, well, that's kind of not how it works around here. We don't delegate because delegation immediately implies subordination. But we enroll each other in the work that needs to be done. And so let's just say that you, I think you're the perfect person to do something. I would come to you and I would say, we have this new project and it needs this talent or this leadership is you came to mind because of your skills and how well you did this other thing. Is this something you would be interested in and have time for? I'm asking for your help. And if you say, yes, I would love to do that, you're invested in the outcome. But if you say, I just can't, you might say, I've got all these things going on at home, or I think this other person is better fit for it, or I just picked up a new project from someone else yesterday I forgot to tell you about. Like, there's always a reason why people will say no, and then they shouldn't be doing it if they don't have the time. But we don't get the right people into the right situations by assigning them work packages. We get people into the right job when they choose it for themselves. And believe me, 95% of the time you ask people properly, they want to say yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because we all wanna do more at work. You'll never convince me someone wants to work on a factory line and put the same screw in every day for 40 years.
Yeah, and I think that's what loving leadership is to me. Loving leadership is slowing down to bring intention to your relationships, to enroll in delegating is lazy. Delegating says, "I have a big idea, you're gonna do it, here's your work." No, when you take the time to enroll people, the quality from free will is so much higher.
So, Kelly, let's say we have a leader, but let's say we have a leader who's listening to this podcast right now, and they're like, "Ladies, that sounds great, but I work in the most toxic environment the two of you have ever been in. And I believe in inside out work. It starts with me." What's the one thing, Kelly, they could do to begin implementing this idea of love driven environment or human centered environments? What's one thing you'd tell them, like, start here? Even even if everyone else around them is like, "That's a dumb idea, we shouldn't do." What's one thing they could do? How could they start to start changing their team, their organization, their agency, their department?
I think one of the very first things to do is to learn the empowerment dynamic. It's a really great book by David Emerald. It's about two guys that meet at the beach and they take a walk. It's also very easy to teach once that you learn the skills, but it makes the case that all of us have been part of the dreaded drama triangle. And we've all been all three. I'm pretty sure that every human has been aggressive towards someone else, but that it creates a lot of cancer in organizations and toxicity. Oh, so and so just did that to me. Oh, yeah, they are a monster. Oh, what are we going to do about that? And the empowerment dynamic shifts the same three people to being a creator, a challenger, and a coach. That's really just because they learned that behavior from somebody and it served them in that moment. But if we want to get rid of the bullying and the pushiness and the aggressiveness, it's not enough just to say, "Stop doing that." It kinda gets to be redirected into seeing them as a challenger instead of a bully. So then you might still go to the person that used to be a rescuer, but you teach that person to become a coach. And they don't take the pain away from you. They don't make a silver lining in that cloud. They say, "Oh gosh, that sounds like a really tough situation. I'm sorry that happened to you. What would you like to do about it? How can I help you get what you want? What is the outcome you're really looking for?" So that former rescuer that goes down in the rabbit hole with you becomes a coach to say, "I'm invested in you. I want to help you have a better outcome. Let me help you figure out where you could go from here." And then that person that used to feel like a victim and stuck a lot can become a creator of any outcome. And we get to teach how to have trust talks. We get to teach how to have crucial conversations. We get to teach nonviolent communication. And the more that we equip the adults, all of them, with the skills to say, "Time out. I'm not feeling good right now. I care enough about you to chat about this." And you start breaking down the capacity to talk about anything. I sort of feel like all the relationships in our life are these energy cords. Whether you meet people in the line at Starbucks or on the bus or at work or on an airplane, you create an energy cord every time you see somebody and you smile at them. And if you sort of thought about this as all the plumbing in all the world is all these relationship cords where things are flowing through, is it clean and open and full of healthy dialogue and flow, or is it stuck? Is this relationship you have full of junk? And it's like, if you feel like there's sludge or something that's not flowing in any relationship in your life, it's worth clearing because the quality of our life is represented by the quality of the relationships we have, and that's love.
I Kelly, it's so on point. So for us at Chefalo Consulting and the work that we do, we call this the reenactment. So for our listeners who are listening, I mean, Kelly's really speaking to the reenactment. Are you the victim? Are you the rescuer? Are you the persecutor? And if so, how do you move to the driver? How do you move to the supporter? How do you move to the coach, right? How do you use those pieces? Um, to empower others to make a change, but not invite yourself back into the reenactment, to invite yourself out, to stay out, and remember, it's easy to fall back in, so it's a constant it's a practice, it's not like a one and done thing, right? It's the practice to keep doing it time and time again, and I think that's so critical.
Well, and I think that you're on the same page from your comments that I think a lot of people have given up their free will, and it's kind of been fascinating even for you to look back at my own life and go, "When did I feel, like, stuck in a situation with a bad boss or with a place where I was having no fun and no joy in my work?" And it's like and I didn't leave, it's sort of like now when I'm with someone else who's in distress at work, I'm like, "I want you to realize you have choices, like, you can take actions to improve the culture here. I'm very happy to help you with that. You can also leave. This is your life, and you do not owe anyone this misery."
No. I say it all the time, is like, we have choice even when it feels like we don't. And I've been there. Listen, as a person who came out of foster care, who was unhoused, where I worked in jobs where it was like, I'm just trying to do this basic thing, keep a roof over my head, do some basic life things. You very much can feel like you don't have a choice. And in that, I still had a choice. I still had choices on how I showed up. I still had choices on the interactions I chose to be involved in or chose not to be involved in. There were still lots of choices, even when maybe I was doing a job where I was like, "I can't do this for 30 years," right? Like, this cannot be the choice, and so, I think it's hard. I think when we're in that trauma state, when we're in that fight, flight, freeze, appease, you kind of mentioned it before, it can feel like there's not choice, but there's always choice, and I do believe we have to make workplaces, and I think good leaders who say, is this the right place for you? When we challenge from a leading perspective, it's some of the hardest things I've done as a leader is realize this person's amazing, but this isn't the place for them. And try to have those conversations of like, how can I help you get to the thing that would make you really happy? Like, because this isn't it. And I know some of those conversations have been in the moment where people have been very upset with me, but in the long term have been really grateful that we've had those conversations of like, "I don't think this is where you're supposed to be."
Yeah, if you think about the impact you have on another human, when you see them and you care enough about them to say, "I'm not sure this is a good fit for you," like, how are you doing? Like, are you enjoying the work? Are you liking it here? Is it a good fit for you? Is this your dream come true? Because if it's not, let me be someone who helps you realize your dreams. I don't want you to leave tomorrow. Let's have a great transition. But I would way rather help you into a better situation for your whole life than um, fire you later or lay you off. Because the hole in your heart that comes from being told that you're not needed anymore when people did not care enough about you to say that this isn't working out or you're not fitting here, this just isn't a good match. Like, we are so disrespecting people and setting them back when we do these broad brush things and just give you a check that's supposed to make you feel better about losing your job. Like, it doesn't work. I mean, I'm actually grateful that I lived through that once because it changed all of my perspectives around the impact of these layoffs and restructurings. It's like, gosh, we owe people a lot more. And another thing to build on your story is the more and more places I find myself, whether it's Joe Dispenza's meditation retreats or the hardcore transformation programs or whatever, a good 40% of the men and women showing up in those forums have had horrific trauma in their lives. And if you grow up with childhood trauma or you grow up in any point in your past, like being told that you were lazy or small or this or that or the other, you're not automatically gonna come to work feeling powerful and organized and fighting for yourself. And I think that it takes this we've talked about unconscious bias around gender and minorities so well, but we have not informed leaders to know that a good 30 or 40% of your workforce has had childhood trauma or teenage
Or
trauma
more.
and
I mean, depending
or
on where
more.
you're working, yeah.
But it's
Depending on the
so
type of working,
prolific.
I mean, there's numbers, Kelly, that tell us, especially in human service work, that it can be upwards to 80 to 90% of your staff.
It's prolific. But if you are not equipped to be empathetic and to realize when some people pause or hide, it's not because 'cause they're not talented. It's not because they don't have ideas. It's because no one has ever held them in a way that unleashes their voice.
That's exactly it. So, Kelly, um, again, we could make this a 2-hour episode. I know we could. So we'll have you back on the show. I've said this to other guests. We're working on an in-person where I'm going to get all these amazing experts together to do something. But as you kind of look into the future, I know you see love as a disruptor. I agree with you. But what other emerging trends or challenges do you see that you think are going to impact the way we manage and lead over the next 5 years?
I worry that there's so little tolerance for people to hear each other in debates and in dialogue that, in the United States right now, if you have 50 people in a department, the facts are that 15-ish of them voted for Trump and 15-ish of them voted for Harris and 15-ish of them didn't vote at all and 5 of them just voted for someone else. And so that's just an example of the tension that is sitting in every room. And all of those people did what they thought was right every day. Like, we're all coming with a death grip on our own values and our own philosophies, and we're holding all this separation. And yet, I think we're forgetting sometimes that we have 885 other things to love about each other, even if we don't agree on politics or we don't agree on other things. But we're losing the capacity to talk about it. We're losing the capacity to have good debates. We're losing the capacity to listen to very diverse opinions and welcome them, knowing that the real gems and the real diamonds are inside of the haystack. You got to build that space for the dissent, for the dialogue, for the conversation, and to get the best out of all of it. And I just feel like we're holding our breath. Like, everyone is coming to work with good intentions and good experience, and then they're tiptoeing around each other trying to be kind and perfect and get through the day. And we're just misplacing all of the beautiful energy and care that's stuck inside of people because we're afraid of stepping on someone else's toes with our big opinions.
Kelly, I love it. Connection before correction, right? Connection before correction. Let's connect. Let's get to really know each other. Let's see each other. Something that I say all the time is the paradigm shift. How do we see each other from our assets, not our deficits?
Absolutely. Well, I think the people in my life, including myself, that have had some trauma or disease and the rise above it are some of the strongest people I know. So it's like when we have our setbacks and we have our challenges and we have our bad days, if we use them properly, they become the source and the roots of how we grow and grow and grow and rise and shine.
All right, Kelly, I'm so excited to ask you our quick fire questions because I know it's going to be super inspiring to me. So off we go. What's the latest book or television show, or what media are you consuming that's caught your attention, and what's standing out about it? For fun, for
I've
work,
been
for
watching
whatever.
Handmaid's Tale,
I could
and
assume something, but tell us more, Kelly. What's happening with Handmaid's Tale?
well, it's just deeply concerning about the power and pressures of people who want the entire world to look a certain way and how extreme people can take things, um, to just not see everyone and create so much distress and so much chaos with such good intentions. I mean, the thing that I'm really into observing how hurt people these days, because I think if you until you have compassion for the person doing the hurting, you don't break the cycles around it. So I've been watching the show with all these movements inside of me. Like, I've been studying the differences between men and women. I've been studying the power of cults and, people who have these big, well-intended movements that are utter disaster for great big groups of people, and then comparing that to what's happening in the United States right now. And it just feels a little too close to home that we could be seeing some communities that look like that in the future. And I'm glad that this show is out there to, like, grab those threads inside of you and go, "Can you live with this? Because that's a no for me."
Yeah, appreciate that. If you could have dinner with a historical or contemporary leader, who would you choose? But what's the one curious question you would want to ask them?
I would do just about anything except pay $1 or $5 million to have dinner with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and all these JD Vance and all these characters right now, because it drives me nuts that you could have people with this much power who are not leading from love and kindness and care and compassion for community. They're using their pain to go after enemies and call people rodents and to decide that some countries are good and some countries are bad. And I would just wanna sit with them and say, "Please reconsider because you have all this power. People believe in you. Use this power for good. Use it for love. Use it for connection. Find your grace, and whatever happened to you that's filling you with all this pain and all this anger, deal with it so we don't have to."
I I love that. It's getting back to the healing piece, right? Until we can understand what their lens. I love that. What's the hobby or activity that's filling you with joy where you just lose track of time? It can consume you.
I love having coffee with a friend. Like, I've come to realize that the greatest joy in my life is having a coffee or a cocktail, but mostly coffee with one person without being on a schedule. Like, when you can get one person to yourself to really connect and share and listen like this, it's just true joy and bliss for me to have one person to myself. So that's like my little treat is finding a friend and grabbing a cup of coffee.
Kelly, I love it. It's the best part of the podcast for me is that I get to have these moments with people of like, can I just pick your brain for an hour and can we just talk about all the things that make my heart sing? Kelly, a true pleasure having you on our show today. What's the piece of advice you would give folks who are just out there? Maybe it's something a lesson that you learned that you found surprising, but what's the one little piece you'll give everybody to just think about as they move forward? Maybe it's a question, something to ponder.
Yeah, I want to ask everybody to look around at the dis-ease in their own life. Like, any time you're experiencing any form of pain, frustration, fear, anxiety, it's just information. And for me, it took a stage 4 metastatic cancer diagnosis to go after all the dis-ease in my body and life and to go try to understand how to set it free. Um, and so now I want that for everybody. Like, I want people to feel the freedom and the joy and the peace that comes from feeling all of your feels and letting them flow and finding the generous present moment so we don't have to keep dragging the past around everywhere we go. We get to be here now. Now's where all the magic is. But that's really hard to do if you haven't been properly held and if you haven't had some sort of kick in the ass like cancer to say, hello, we need you to reconsider how you're living your life.
Kelly, we're so grateful that you're here. We're so grateful that you kicked cancer's ass. We're so happy to have you with us. How can our listeners find you if they want to have you come help them in their personal life, in their work life, if their organizational life? Where can they find you and what do you have going on?
I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. And also, my website is www.kellyweingartenhall.com. And my book, Love Works, is available on Amazon in hard copy, audiobook, and ebook. And I read the audiobook myself. It also has all the different ways to contact me. And if you want a signed copy of the book, I can happily mail you one, and it will come with a little card that offers you a free drink with me, whether it's on Zoom or in person, a coffee or a cocktail, because I want to hear about how people can activate more loving leadership.
I love it. So if you want coffee or a cocktail with Kelly, head over to her website, order her book, get your free coupon, meet with her. Uh, I think it's also, you should do it in person. Find a place, meet in person. The easy way out is Zoom. Find a way to meet in person. Kelly, such a pleasure to have you on our show. For our listeners, I hoped you loved talking about love as much as I loved talking about love. And just slow down one thing, build it in there. It doesn't have to be an extra task that you do. Just empower each other to bring a little more love to the workplace. Until next time, we'll see you. And please stop by, pick up Kelly's book. Kelly, again, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for your time. I've enjoyed it very much.
Mindful Management, Creating a Trauma-Informed Work Environment is brought to you by Chefalo Consulting. To learn more about Chefalo Consulting and our trauma-informed change management and professional development solutions, please visit chefaloconsulting.com. That's Chefalo, CHEFALO, consulting.com. Make sure you don't miss these transformative conversations by subscribing to Mindful Management wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for listening. And remember, change happens one step at a time.